Hey everybody, welcome to this segment of Beadshop Basics. Today I'm going to show you how to make one of our signature closures called the Trails End Loop. Now the Trails End that's a project that Janice has done, and it's a real Beadshop classic, and I'm going to show you what it looks like here, and then I'll go over the steps. So this will be a great video for you just to refer back to when you were like, oh, I want to use that closure, but I just can't remember how to do it. This Trails End is from the Trails End project that Janice did, and essentially it's a loop that is made out of leather. Any size leather will work, 1 millimeter, 1.5, 2 millimeter. Today I'm going to be using the 1.5, but here on this piece I think Janice might have used 2 millimeter. But anytime you want kind of a rustic looking closure for your piece, or if you need to extend the piece at all, this is a great way to do it. And you can see how this just comes in and closes up just like that. Janice did this one with the silk wrapping, and I'm going to show you a couple of different methods that you can create this Trails End loop. But again, a lot of our projects over on beadshop.com use this, and I'm sure that you can think up inventive ways to use it as well. So let's take a look at the materials I'm going to be using today. I'm going to jump in and use the 1.5 millimeter leather. This is the distressed brown, but of course any color or size will work for your project. I'm gonna do several different types of closures. So we're going to silk wrap, we're going to macrame, we are going to crimp using this crimp, and then I'm also going to show you just how to tie the knot. So the silk wrapping, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the silk wrap with this regular Ceylon here. This is in Copper Rose. I'm going to do the macrame closure with this 0.5 millimeter Chinese knotting cord, and then I've used just this regular transition, and I'm going to show you how to crimp it that way. And then the knot, we'll just do an overhand knot with this. So to decide how long you need this closure to be, right? I'm going to cut, I don't know, maybe about 5 inches worth of cord here. And you can make your cord, your loops on this thing, as large or as small as you want them to be. On this one that Janice did, you can see that one loop is larger to accommodate the button, and then one is a little smaller that connects to the project. You can do it that way. You can make them equal. It doesn't make any difference, really, whatever works for you. I'm going to go ahead and use one of our clampers to kind of clamp all of this. So you can kind of see how I've done the leather in a figure 8, and I've got some tails here. So I'm going to set that aside. I'm going to cut about 1 foot of our Ceylon here, our regular Ceylon. And I've also done a silk wrapping how-to bead shop basics, so you can kind of get a little more info on that by watching that basic video. But essentially I'm going to do this silk wrap where I've got my Ceylon in a loop with the tail here, and then I'm going to come in. I'm going to make this loop a little bit smaller and a little bit larger on this end. So with this long end, I'm going to start wrapping for my Trails End for this silk wrap. And you can see I'm going to switch my hands here. You can see that loop kind of went towards the back, but it doesn't make much difference. What you do want to make sure that you're doing when you create this loop, this Trails End loop, is when you make the figure 8, you want all of your leather, see how it's laying flat underneath the wrap that I'm doing? That's kind of the key. You don't want anything, kind of twisted or lying one on top of the other or whatever, because then it'll come out, it'll be a little bit of a twisted closure and it won't look quite as nice. So just make your silk wrapping as long as you want it to be. This looks nice. I like this to be a little bit longer when it's the trail's end. And I'm going to come around like we do with our wrapping. And I'm going to finish off that silk wrapping by putting the thread through that loop and then tightening up that loop and pulling that closure right inside here. And you can see, and I know a lot of you do this silk wrapping. Go ahead and watch that silk wrapping basics that I did, and I think that'll really help you if you find that your silk wrapping is not quite everything you want it to be. So tighten it up, and then you can come in with your thread snips and give it a little clip there, a little clip there to get rid of that. And what you can do is clip it kind of close. I don't mind having a little bit of that leather actually show, but I want to clip it kind of close. And you want to make sure that you don't clip your loop or anything like that. So, and then again, if this is a loop side that goes in a button, you want to make sure and measure that before, your final finish. But this is it. That's the trail's end loop. That is silk wrapped. Let's go ahead and do another one. Let me cut another length here. And I want to get my clamper here. And we're going to macrame this one now. I'm going to use 0.5 millimeter, but you can macrame with anything. Leather and 0.5 leather, any size of the Chinese knotting cord. The regular Ceylon would look good. This is about, 18 inches or so here. And I've just put it in my clamp to kind of hold everything. The secret to a really good macrame is that you don't want things to move around too much. So hopefully this clamp will kind of hold it like I want it to. So I've got a small loop up there, and I'm just going to simply start with my macrame. I went to the center point of my Chinese knotting cord here. And I have a Beadshop Basics on this kind of flat macrame, but essentially what I'm going to do is I'm going to start to the left, make a loop, bring the tail of the right hand side of the cord over the left. I'm going to go under all of this business, all the leather, and bring it out and up through that left hand loop and tighten it up. Okay, so that first tie really kind of establishes what's going on there. Okay, and so I've clamped this here. If I wanted this bottom loop to be a little bit smaller, I would move my clamp up a little bit, but we're just going to go with this for now. So now we're going to do that same thing. We're going to go to the right, make that loop to the right, go over that tail with the left, under the leather, and up through that loop. This clamp really kind of grounds everything, right? It's not super heavy, but it keeps everything kind of, not moving around, so it's all loosey-goosey there. So I'm going to go ahead, repeat that to the right, and I'm going to go a little bit faster here and make, I don't know, you decide how many wraps you want to do here or how many stitches, right? Because what we're doing is we're creating a set of half hitches to create that full square knot. I would say I want at least 5 total knots, which means 10, 5 to the right, 5 to the left. So I keep going back and forth here. And can you see how you see a little bit of that leather coming through? I'm going to go a little faster now so I can get it in there. And you can also lash this down to the board so it doesn't move around too much. but it's not too bad. It's a little floppy with this clamp, but you know, use what you have that works for you. There we go. That's starting to look pretty good, if I do say. So now let me count and see how many of the knots that I've made, because I have not been counting. So essentially, I count these little scallops that are here. So 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So I've got 4 full ones. So let me make one more here. Maybe I'll do 6 because I want to show you how I'm going to close this off. So that's the 5th set. And now we'll do the last one. So what I'm going to do here is, as I do the last one, I'm going to make my loop, and see right there where my loop is going to end up sitting. I'm going to get a little bit of the GS Hypo cement right on my toothpick. Can you see that? I've got a little bit of cement right there, and I'm going to get a little bit of that there. I'm going to put a little bit there on my leather as well. Okay, so now when I tie this, it's going to get tied over that glue. I'm going to add just a touch on the other end too. I like the toothpick because I don't want to get too much of the glue anywhere. So I'm just going to come in and tighten everything up like so. There we go. And I'm going to do one last one here and glue as well. Okay, so let me get that glue right there. Just a touch, getting it with your toothpick, getting it through, going underneath, and then tightening it up. If you feel like you need one more dot right there, or spreading it out, you're good to go. Oops, I got a little glue there. I don't want to pick up any of the fuzz. Usually I put a plastic baggie down to make sure I don't get any glue on my board, and I was a little careless there. So wipe away any extra glue with your toothpick that might be on the front or the back. Add just a touch more if you need to at the knots there and like there, right? And so what I'll do is I'll let this sit. Like if this were a real project and not a little demo for you guys, I would go ahead and I'd let this sit, and then I would just come in. You can clip it, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and use my thread burner, and I'm just going to singe those threads off. And the thread burner, make sure you're using it in a well ventilated area, because it does leave off a little bit of, a little bit of fume there. So tap it, turn it on, tap it just a little to get any little extra bits away. So there's that. And now you can cut your extras, your extra ends away. So this one is a little bit larger. So that looks very nice. So we've got these two different sizes. So now let me show you one that's super easy. The next two are really easy and don't take any time. So if you're pressed for time and you're like, oh my gosh, I've got to finish this piece like yesterday. So what you do is I'm just going to come in, I'm going to put this crimp that we call the transition crimp, and I'm just going to put my leather through it like that. loop it back through like that. And sometimes if you have trouble looping your leather through, you can, I'm going to go ahead and angle cut that so it'll go through just like so. And now you can adjust however, whatever size loop you want. I don't know if that was the button side and that would go to the closure, whatever, however it would work. Then you just crimp it down like we do for all of our projects. We use this in our prairie project. We use these little transition crimps for a lot of things. So I come in and really gently, see how I'm at the back part of my plier. I'm using my chain nose that's nice and it doesn't, it's nice and smooth, the heads are, so it doesn't mark my crimp at all. And then I just come in and simply clip those ends away like so. So I'm there. All right, so let me get those back in. So the last one is just a simple knot. And I want to show you just this overhand knot, but essentially what I do, I hope I cut this long enough, I'll make my kind of that figure 8 and I'll just make a loop with that 8, and I need to get all of this stuff through that loop. It's kind of a random, it's a little hard to kind of, what do I want to say, adjust the length of this, but see how I went through. And then I also want all of this knot to lay as flat as I can get it, so I adjust it a little bit as I'm tightening it down. But there we go. That looks nice. And you can kind of tighten forward and back. And I'll also kind of tighten the loops up a little bit to make sure that everything sits nicely. And again, come in and clip kind of at that angle. This definitely doesn't need any glue or anything. It's not going to go anywhere. But that's it. Get that figure 8 and just do that overhand knot with it. And that's it. So here we've got the 4 faces of the silk wrap here. I mean, not the silk wrap, the trails end loop. We've got our regular silk wrap version here. We've got the macrame version. The silk wrap uses the regular Ceylon in copper rose, the 0.5 millimeter in spring leaf that I did for the macrame, just crimping with the transition, and then that simple overhand loop here. And again, this is all 1.5 millimeter leather. Well, thank you all so very much for joining me for this Beadshop Basics. Please give us a follow over at beadshop.com on our Insta. Join us over on Facebook at the Bead Table on our Beadshop group. And of course, give a like, subscribe, and hit those notifications right over on our YouTube channel so you don't miss any of this wonderful beading content. And of course, you can find all of these products right over on our website at beadshop.com. Thanks so much, everybody, for joining me. I hope you liked this quick trails end tutorial, and check out all of our projects over on Beadshop, and I'm sure you'll find something really fun to create using this technique. Thanks so much, everybody.